Today we're going to be reacting to French overseas regions and territories explained. All we know is there's a lot of them.
Yeah, they're like all over. They got some stuff in the Americas, I think, and then like some islands probably somewhere. French Polynesia's a thing, I think, right?
Yeah, their maritime empire that they used to have still kind of exists with all their islands and such.
I wonder if they have more than the UK nowadays.
I feel like they do. I feel like all the videos you see, it's always like, did you know France is actually in every time zone or whatever the heck, how many ever time zones? But let's check it out. Here we go.
Liberty, equality, fraternity. The world centre for art and culture, home to many famous landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame and the Palace of Versailles. Its capital city is the world capital of fashion. It has more tourists than any other country in the entire world and has more stereotypes than I could possibly fit into this video. Of course, I'm talking about France, officially the French Republic. But where exactly is France? Now this may sound like a silly question. Obviously this is France right here. And while this is correct, it's not entirely correct. Saying this is France.
Isn't like Paris also a country too? Just kidding.
Yeah, the American geography, they
Yeah.
teach you that. They don't actually teach you, but people think it a lot.
This is
And some people think London is in France.
Yes, yes.
Saying this is the United States. While this is by far the most recognisable part of the country, this is only 48 of the 50 states. There's also Alaska and Hawaii. And while the USA is divided up into states, France is divided up into regions, which are further subdivided into departments. And this is only
there's a
12
lot.
of the 18 regions of France. The 13th is pretty close by, the island of Corsica. Although technically it's referred to as a territorial collectivity, it has some special status within the Republic, but in virtually
Look
every
how
way
beautiful
it's
it
the
is.
exact same
I'd
as
love to
all
go to
the other
Corsica.
regions. These 12 mainland regions, plus the island of Corsica, make up what's known as metropolitan France.
Okay.
Metropolitan France makes up 82% of the land and 96% of the population of France. To find the 5
86.
remaining regions, we need to go outside of Europe. First, we head across the Atlantic to the Caribbean and the region of Guadeloupe. The region is made up of 2 mainland islands, Basse-Terre and Grande-Terre. The
I've never
islands
heard
were
of those.
annexed in 1674 and became an overseas department in
they're beautiful.
1946. Guadeloupe is unique in that it actually has its own dependencies, Ile de Saint, Marie-Galante and La Désirade. Any of these dependencies have the option of upgrading to an overseas collectivity at any point if they so choose, and that's exactly what happened with Saint Barthélemy and Saint Martin, former dependencies that became their own overseas collectivities in 2007.
Okay.
But more on them later. The next overseas department is also in the Caribbean, Martinique. The island was first colonised by the French back in the 17th
It's
century.
interesting that like you hear so many of those islands in that area, but none of those I've ever heard of.
Yeah, like when we do our, sometimes we try to test our knowledge of naming all the countries in the world. We can usually get like all mainland countries, all continental countries, but then once we get into like the Pacific Islands and then right there in the that area, it's very, very hard for us to get the countries. Then also factoring in that half of them are territories or possible overseas collectivities or whatever he's talking about. Very interesting.
Very
Despite
interesting.
resistance from the indigenous people already inhabiting the island. The island came under British occupation several times throughout its history, but sovereignty was transferred back to France at the conclusion of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815
Oh,
and has been a
interesting.
French possession ever since, becoming an overseas department in 1946. Moving a little bit further south with the third overseas region to South America, where we find the largest of the overseas regions, French Guiana. The general area of South America is known as the Guianas, and during the colonial times there were 5 Guianas: Spanish, British, Dutch, French and Portuguese Guiana.
You got all of them in there. All the colonizers got their
They
little
all wanted
rays
to
and-
cut. My
That's
gosh.
crazy.
It's like the way they cut up Southeast Asia. It was just like that.
So I wonder why French Guiana is the only one that's still there, because the other ones are all independent countries now, I believe.
The French really didn't want to give it up for some reason. What goes on in French Guiana that's like valuable?
I don't know.
I believe the people there want to stay in France, from
Yeah.
what I know. So
Guyana
that makes
became
sense
part
too.
of Venezuela. British
Yeah.
Guyana became the independent country of Guyana. Dutch Guyana became the independent country of Suriname. French Guyana stayed French Guyana but was upgraded from a colony to an overseas region, and Portuguese Guyana became part of Brazil.
Interesting.
French Guiana is by far the largest of all the departments of France. At more than 83,000 square kilometers, it is larger than 82 independent countries.
Dang, same size as the UAE, basically.
For the next 2 overseas regions, we need to travel to a completely different part of the world.
You guys can let us know, I guess, why they stayed compared to the other ones if you know.
The Indian Ocean, just off the coast of Madagascar. About 700 kilometers east of Madagascar is the island of Réunion. About 40% of the island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a national park. Réunion is the most populous of the overseas regions, with about 850,000 people. Its population is higher than that of 41 independent countries. And finally, the smallest and least populous of the French regions, Mayotte, 300 kilometers west of Madagascar and geographically part of the Comoro Islands. In fact, the country of Comoros still claims the island of Mayotte, but the island overwhelmingly voted in favour of remaining part of the French Republic when Comoros became an independent country in 1975. The other 3 islands voted for independence. So there are 5 overseas regions of France,
do what they want.
all of which are also overseas departments of France, as all of the regions are made up of just one single department, all of which are an integral part of the country of France. This means they're not just territories that are French, they are literally part of the country. This means that all of these regions, despite not being in Europe, are part of the European Union. They're also part of the Eurozone, meaning the euro is their legal tender. However, unlike mainland France, they are not part of the Schengen area. So that's France. Mainland France, plus the island of Corsica, which make up metropolitan France, plus the 5 overseas regions and departments. But we're not quite done yet. While this is the French Republic, the country of France, there is still more French land in the world. Quite a lot, actually. France has what's known as overseas collectivities, technically not part of the country of France but under French sovereignty, all of which have varying degrees of autonomy. Let's start with French Polynesia in the South Pacific. French Polynesia is quite unique in that it is sometimes referred to as an overseas country and even has its own president, having a special status within the Republic. The most well-known part of French Polynesia is the island of Tahiti, the largest and most populous island. So much so, in fact, that the official tourism website refers to all of French Polynesia as the Islands of Tahiti. As well as Tahiti, there's also the popular tourist destination of Bora Bora, the romantic island known for its aquacentric luxury resorts.
I realized Bora Bora was French.
French Polynesia is thought to be one of the last places on Earth to be settled by humans. The islands were annexed by France in 1880, at the time known as French establishments in Oceania. Going back to the Caribbean now, and the previously mentioned St. Barthélemy and St. Martin. Like I said, they both used to be part of the dependencies of the overseas region of Guadeloupe, but broke away and became their own overseas collectivities in 2007. St. Barthélemy was actually a Swedish colony for nearly a century, but was later sold to France in 1878. The Swedish influence can still be seen today on the island's coat of arms, depicting the 3 crowns from Sweden's own coat of arms. St. Martin, the French overseas collectivity, makes up about 60% of the island of St. Martin.
Look where the airport is.
It's
in a lake.
They got double airports. Oh, that didn't seem like it was that big.
Maybe there's an airport that flies to the other French islands, and then this is the international airport.
That would be a crazy landing, though.
Right in between these 2 mountains? Dang, very interesting.
The other 40% being one of the 4 constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, also called St. Martin. The island only has 1 airport on the Dutch side and is well known on YouTube for its extremely low. The island only has.
What the heck is this? And this?
That's a, I don't know.
Is it a private airport for private planes?
1 airport on the Dutch side and is well known on YouTube for its extremely low flying planes as they land. Several viral videos show planes landing extremely close to the tourists on the beach below due to the short runway.
That'd be so loud.
Next we move on to Saint Pierre and Miquelon, the only remnant of the former colonial empire of New France that remains under French control. New France was the colonial efforts of the French Empire in North America. However, New France was ceded to the British and the Spanish in the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Spain later returned the French land in 1800, but was then later sold to the United States in 1803 in the Louisiana Purchase.
It's like a horrible
Those
chunk of
loads of-
land to have. No wonder they wanted to sell it. Just smashed in between, landlocked mostly, except for like Louisiana down here.
It's literally mostly the Great Plains and then a tiny bit of the mountains.
They could have had like a lot of corn and a lot of
Yeah.
buffalo. That's
And
basically it.
the one coastal area they got, Louisiana, is just marshy bayous.
And the only way out is to go dang through all of these islands.
Mhm.
They'd probably get like taxed in
sold to the
there.
United States in 1803 in the Louisiana Purchase. So Saint Pierre and Miquelon is the last remaining part of French land in North America, a French overseas collectivity. However, the archipelago has gone through several political changes in the last 70 years.
Interesting.
The fifth and final overseas collectivity, like French Polynesia, is also in Oceania, Wallis and Futuna. As well as having its
Wallis
own
and
local
Futuna.
government, it also has 3 kings. The collectivity is divided.
Wallace is like in my top 3 places I've always wanted to go.
For me, it was more of like a top 5, but
Wallace.
You know,
Just
Futuna is number 3 for me though.
just for the name alone.
The 3 traditional Polynesian kingdoms.
I bet
before
they're
the
really
islands were
cool.
annexed by France in 1917. But as well as these overseas collectivities, staying in Oceania, there's also
Weird.
17
This one they just split it on the same island. What's the point?
That's so interesting.
That island's definitely not very big.
But as well as these overseas collectivities, staying in Oceania,
Whoa.
there's also 17.
There's an island ring around the main island.
Oh, that's cool. So like, can you? They gotta have some cool beaches then, right?
The landscape's gotta look crazy if there's like a mountain you can stand on.
But as well as these overseas collectivities, staying in Oceania, there's also New Caledonia, which is unique within the Republic. It's referred to as a special collectivity and has its own
That's
section
French?
within the
I didn't
French
read that.
Constitution. Like French Polynesia, it's sometimes referred to as an overseas country. New Caledonia also has its own president. Back in 1987, there was a failed independence referendum with only 1.7% of the population voting in favour. However, another referendum is due to take place at some point before the year 2018. New Caledonia, along with Wallis and
video?
Futuna and French Polynesia, are not part of the Eurozone and actually have their own currency, the CFP franc.
that's
The
cool.
rest of the
Wow.
collectivities use the euro. We're pretty much finished now, but there are still 2 entities that are worth mentioning. The French Southern and Antarctic lands, which are referred to as a territorial collectivity made up of various islands in the southern Indian Ocean, as well as France's claims to Antarctica. None of the islands have a
Oh, they got
permanent
quite the
population, and
sliver
due to
there.
The Antarctica Treaty of 1961, French claims on the continent are not recognised as sovereign. Finally, there's Clipperton Island, officially referred to as an
the heck?
overseas minor territory, located about 1,000 kilometers southwest of Mexico. This tiny 6 kilometer square island is completely uninhabited. So, to sum up, there's mainland France, which, together with the island of Corsica, make up metropolitan France, as opposed to overseas France, the 5
This is gonna get
overseas
confusing.
regions and departments, which together with metropolitan France make up the actual country of France. Then there's 5 overseas collectivities, 1 special
Okay.
collectivity, 1 overseas territorial collectivity, and 1 overseas minor territory. All French.
That's crazy.
That is a lot of stuff. So is France gonna pull a China and then be like, actually guys, we're connecting all of our sea area, and then they're gonna take all the maritime or sea area all across the world?
The whole South China Sea can belong to them maybe because they're kind of close. How do like if you're from mainland France then I already forgot all of his definitions, but if you're from the actual like mainland on Europe, how do you feel about all the French territories? Does it impact you at all? Have you even thought about it?
Do you commonly think of American Samoa and Guam?
Yeah, I know, because I mean,
You're American.
we went to Guam once.
4 hours
Yeah.
in the airport.
Didn't get to
Pretty
see any
cool.
Americanization there, but I really no, I don't think about it at all.
I'm sure French people can like go to those places. Like we can just go to Guam without any like visas or anything, but the plane tickets are probably like insanely expensive, like they are for us if we want to go to one of the U.S. Island territories. So
Especially for some of those, they're like literally directly across from them. Like Caledonia seems like it's literally directly across the globe from them.
South Pacific, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to kind of see how France deals with all its overseas territories and the way they're categorized and stuff. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let us know what we should check out next from France, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Bye.